Past District Governor Lion Sandesh Shreshtha hails from the beautiful neighboring country of Nepal. Ladies and gentlemen, leadership may come easy to all, but sound leadership comes rare. Presenting Past District Governor Sandesh Shreshtha.
Namaste. Greetings to all of you from Nepal. I'm Line Dr. Sandesh Shreshtha, a Line Certified Instructor, LCIP graduate, and currently the Chief of E-Training at District 335A1, Nepal, and my home club is Lions Club Virat Central. Today I'm here to talk about sound leadership, creating harmony in social organizations. My session is for the next 30 minutes, and I welcome you all at this first ever Lions Isame Virtual Forum 2020, and I hope all our learning experiences through this forum will be wonderful. Dear friends, when we hear the word, or when you heard the word sound leadership for the first time, or when you're hearing it now, what does sound leadership, the word, how does it ring in your minds? What tune does it play? What do we think about? What should it be? What are the dimensions of sound leadership? When going through various literatures, we come across sound leadership in different dimensions. We come across sound leadership where the power of music helps to enhance leadership capabilities. We come across where the power of voice or the tone of voice enhances leadership, and also where various other aspects of music combined with voice creates a therapy for a good leadership to survive. I'm here today not to talk about leadership on the basis of music or on the basis of the voice or the vocal cord, but I'm here to talk about sound leadership in a different tune. And the tune of sound leadership that I'm here for to talk to you about is about sound leadership to thrive, sound leadership to lead, and sound leadership to succeed. So my session objectives today is, by the end of this session, we're going to define sound leadership. You'll be able to understand how to promote sound leadership skills in social organizations, and you're going to analyze sound leadership practices. Dear friends, effective leadership requires verbal discipline. Leaders need to care and also practice the quality, the specificity, and also the power of the language that they speak. And here language does not mean just the tool of expression of words. Your language is your overall presentation. Language is how you as a leader are perceived by your followers, and in social organizations by volunteers and members. So when we talk about sound leadership, we have to understand that sound leadership is creating strong leaders for sound organizations. Strong leaders for sound organizations. And how can that strength in a leadership be enhanced so that a very well disciplined organization, a sound organization exists? Talking about sound organization, we have to understand that sound leadership is the basis of sound organization. But sound leadership happens when the influences, the inspirations, and the coordinations are collective to the responses. Every organization exists in an environment which is dynamic. So when you need to respond to the situation, how do you influence, how do you inspire, how do you coordinate your members? That is what sound leadership is all about. Sound leadership is grounded in humility and is disciplined by vision. Because through sound leadership, we've got to understand that if I am providing leadership to some people who are going to work in that organization, I have to understand that each person in their own rights have their own ego, have their own self-respect, have their own ways of thinking. So we have to be grounded in humility and also be disciplined by the vision that the organization wishes to carry forward. And also remember, for a sound leadership, we have to respect the importance of a comprehensive input. Now, what I mean by this is that, remember, every member that you are working with in an organization, including you, remember, you also a follower for some leader, and you are a leader for some followers. This is how the dynamics of an organization works. So, you may be a member or volunteer who just joined an organization. You may be new to an organization, but because of your status that you already possess, because of the hierarchy that you are working in a certain organization that is already there, you have your knowledge, you have your skills, and you have a certain mindset that you can contribute. So that is why when leading people in a social organization through sound leadership, we've got to respect the importance of the comprehensive input of everyone. That is why when we define sound leadership, we say that sound leadership is reflective, willing to concede the failures of any efforts and recognize the need to adjust to find an effective solution at all levels of an organization. So it is about reflections. It is about also conceding to the failures of any effort. Conceding means not harping about it, not blaming anyone for it, but we can move ahead by learning from it. So the need is to adjust and find an effective solutions at all levels of an organization. And this defines sound leadership. Dear friends, talking about sound leadership, we also got to understand that we need to promote sound leaderships in social organizations. It is not something that happens automatically because there are people from all walks of life. There are people from different backgrounds, economic backgrounds, social backgrounds, financial backgrounds. There are people who are on their own rights to understand things. You cannot force onto someone your viewpoints, your perspectives, because their perspective is also their right to choose. So how do we promote sound leaderships in social organizations? Firstly, we've got to understand that in social organization, the most important aspect to be considered is task assignment. We have to understand that everyone cannot do everything. So as a leader, if we want the cycle of leadership to continue, we have to understand that each and every person that wishes to join your organization, remember, he or she has a certain ambition and a certain way of proving himself or herself. So it is the duty of the leader to promote everyone within the organization by assigning tasks. And when you assign tasks, the other benefit to a leader is that you will be free to think more. You will be free to think more so that you can take the organization to a next level. The second is about sharing responsibility. We have to understand that when we talk about sound leadership skills in social organizations, responsibility has to be shared so that everyone feels the ownership of any project, any work that is being done. You have to involve people so that they feel it is their own. And that can only happen when you share the responsibility. Thirdly, remember, for a sound leadership skills in social organizations, we need to have goals. So goal setting is very important. It's of paramount importance that all organizations have vision, mission, goals, and objectives. So goal setting is to provide directions. It's to minimize confusion. It's to minimize overlapping of jobs or overlapping of activities, which would just be a waste. So when we set goals, there are two advantages. One, people who know the goals, they match with their own individual goals. And once they match with their own individual goals, they contribute wholeheartedly. Or secondly, if they are told about the goals that have been set, they know till when they have to contribute or till when they can contribute. And that can only happen with the fourth point when we talk about social leadership skills required for social organizations is about development plans. Remember, every organization is dynamic. The people contributing to the growth of an organization are also dynamic. So naturally, we are not static, we are dynamic. So how can that dynamism be continued? Only when we plan for its development. So sound leadership skills in social organizations can happen by task assignment, by sharing responsibility, by goal setting and development plans. Dear friends, when I talk about sound leadership to you all, I just want you to think for a second. What does leadership sound like? See, I put it in inverted commas. What does leadership sound like? Or is there something called leadership sound? We've heard about sound of music. We've heard about sound of silence. But what is leadership sound? Does a leadership sound really exist? I hope you've given a thought to it. So I'd like to work on it more. Firstly, the leadership voice is the sound of leadership. So we have to work towards understanding and discovering the leadership voice that you possess. And leadership voice over here does not mean the only thing that you say. See, there are verbal cues and there are non-verbal cues. Verbal cues are that which I am right now reflecting to you, I'm talking to you, I'm explaining things to you. Non-verbal cues is my body language, is my gestures and postures. So when we are talking about the overall leadership that is to be provided, the leadership sound comprises of the leadership voice and also discovering the leadership voice. So communication is the voice of leadership. Please try to understand. Communication is the voice of leadership. And if communication is the voice of leadership, which if fine-tuned will create a sound organization, how can we fine-tune that communication so that a sound organization is created is by three things. Number one, it is by clarity. Number two, it is by confidence. And number three, it is by conviction. Dear friends, this is what I would like to elaborate on. That communication is the voice of leadership. So we're going to use the 3 C's of communication, that is clarity, confidence, and conviction, to lead so that your leadership creates a sound environment, creates a sound organization, and overall you will be recognized by providing sound leadership. Now, talking about the first C among the communication as the voice of leadership, I want to talk about communicating with clarity. Clarity leads to attention and attention leads to results. Remember, whenever we are leading an organization, there cannot be a state of ambiguity where everyone understands everything in their own ways or their own perspectives. It will be haywire. You cannot command. The chain of command has to be very, very prevalent in any organizations. And that can only happen when what you are speaking, what you are trying to enforce, that is proven by the activity that is done. And activity is only proven by the results that is there. So the first thing that you need to do is communicate with clarity. The second is that you need to communicate with conviction, as it's been written there. Strong convictions precede great actions. Strong convictions precede great actions. Now, what do I mean by that is that when we communicate, remember to whom you are communicating and what they are understanding. That is to be first understood by yourself, the leader. You've got to believe in what you are speaking out, in what you want out of your members in an social organizations. as rightly said, you've got to walk the talk. You've got to believe it first. And then great actions happen. And thirdly, my dear friends, we communicate with confidence as the voice of leadership. The quality of your communication is greatly affected by the degree of your confidence. So here, sometimes conviction and confidence are sometimes treated as synonymous or overlapping. But conviction is you believing in yourself that you will be providing leadership so that a sound, strong organization will be the core of every member's contribution. But when you are clear, when you are convinced, how do you prove it? How do you show it? You show it through confidence. And that is where communication plays a big role, a very, very important role. So the 3 C's of communication is the voice of leadership: communicating with clarity, communicating with conviction, and communicating with confidence. So let's reflect a little bit on the leaderships that you have witnessed, on the leadership that you have practiced. You yourself as a leader that you have practiced, and you as members or volunteers that you have witnessed in whichever social organizations you are in, and in context to the Lions Isame Virtual Forum 2020 that we are right now in context to the Lions clubs or the Leo clubs. So let's reflect. I'm a leader. Are there people who say, just listen to me, listen to me, listen to me? Or are there leaders in your organization who say, I listen to you, I listen to you, I listen to you? So you got to understand that as a leader, you set the tone for your entire team. You communicate your vision. So as a leader, you must say that, listen to me. And as a leader, you must say, I listen to you, because you set the tone for the entire team by communicating your vision. But that does not mean that just listening to me and I listen to you would solve the problem of your leadership goals. We listen to understand each other. That's what is very, very, very important. Remember, these days there's a saying that people listen to you not to understand, but people listen to you to respond. And that's why the communication is not complete. Sometimes it's halfway, because you are already overreacting, because you are over enthusiastic to respond, to answer, without even giving a thought to the full question that is being asked, or the full communication that is being done to you. So that is why it's been said that true leadership is when you are willing to risk your power and voice so that all of us can be heard. So beautifully said by Justin Timberlake. True leadership is when you are willing to risk your power and voice so that all of us can be heard. That's why, just give it a thought, my dear friends. To sound like a leader, think about what you say and how and when you say it. To sound like a leader, think about what you say and how and when you say it. That is why there are certain sound leadership practices that I'm going to talk about. First is about developing a strategy for both the people and the organization. That is how you build up on sound leadership practices. You develop a sound strategy, not only for the members, not only for the leaders, but the organization itself should have a sound leadership strategy. Okay, that is how the first leadership practice begins. Secondly is because there are people interacting, there are people from all walks of life that are willing to contribute or are voluntarily joining you, or you have motivated them to join. You need to develop them. You need to build development goals. You need to build development plans into your organizational goals. And thirdly, every person that works in an organization or that contributes in an organization's activities or that volunteers, that wishes to become a member, also always asks us a question, what's there in it for me? What's there in it for me? And that question has to be answered by where people need to develop, people are encouraged to develop, and we need to motivate them by saying that you need to develop yourself by first finding a mentor and then becoming a successor to somebody else. And that is how the cycle continues. That's how the baton is passed on. So You develop a sound strategy, you develop others, and you develop yourself. These are the three sound leadership practices that is going to make your organization very, very good, very strong. So effective communication is 20% of what you know and 80% of what you feel, what you know. That is why your vision and sound leadership could help you to expand and grow. And how do you expand and grow with your vision and sound leadership? By developing a sound strategy, by developing others, and by developing yourself. So my dear friends, sound leadership in tune with the social organization today. This is the last part that I'm going to talk about. We are, as I say, in a very, very dynamic world. We talk about people being dynamic personality. How are people categorized as dynamic or having a dynamic personality? It is because of one single word that I think is most important, and that is called adaptation. Adaptation to situation and moving ahead. That's what dynamism is all about. Because you cannot stop the clock. The pace of change is rapid. The uncertainty that exists is beyond our imagination. Expecting the unexpected is the norm. So we've got to understand that when we are expecting the unexpected, when what the future holds for us is uncertain, there is no certainty, there is only uncertainty in every activity, but time is passing. You cannot stop the clock, or you cannot turn back the clock. So what do? Except flow with the time. Accept the situation as it is. And also adapt yourself and your leadership skills so that the organization thrives, your leadership is proved, and success happens. So sound leadership in tune with the social organizations today. How do we define it? Firstly, we've got to understand that challenges of social organizations today cannot be successfully addressed without sound leadership. So why leadership is important, but sound leadership is more important, is because at the global, national, and as well as the local level, or be it the micro or the macro spheres of our leadership, we need to understand that the challenges of social organizations are multifold. Multiple challenges are already there. And so what are you going to do to address it? How are you going to address it? That is important to be understood. Again, I'd like to say that in tune with the social organizations today, how is sound leadership going to be beneficial? Remember, weak leadership can wreck the soundest strategy. You may have the best strategy. You may have the best vision, goals, objectives that you've defined or set. You put it in big letters, big bold letters, where each people follow it like a mantra. But if the leadership is weak, no strategy is going to work, my dear friends. So weak leadership can break the soundest strategy. So to provide sound leadership, we got to put more leadership in politics and less politics in the leadership. A very powerful word that I'm going to request you to follow it if we are going to practice sound leadership. Remember, we've got to put more leadership in the politics and less politics in the leadership. Politics is all about governance. It's all about functioning. It's all about rules and regulations that we need to adhere to. So if we put more leadership in politics, that is going to be the best way that every people are going to follow. And follow with conviction, follow with clarity, follow with confidence. But if you put politics in leadership, my dear friends, just imagine when you got frustrated. Just imagine when that frustration level reached a depressing level. Just imagine that your enthusiasm got all subdued, sometimes even killed, because there were too much of politics in the leadership. So to provide sound leadership, I again reiterate, put more leadership in the politics and less politics in the leadership. That's why the demands of our time are not merely to change the way the game is played, but to change the game itself so as to best meet the needs of the people. The demands of our time, in tune with the time of today, social organizations need to adopt, and move ahead. So the demand of our times are not merely to change the way the game is played, my dear friends, but to change sometimes the game itself so as to best meet the people's need. And this is the gift of sound leadership, because in sound leadership, we are not in confusion. We know the direction that we need to move. And also we create harmony through sound leadership, and we balance the tune. This is the gift of sound leadership, my dear friends. That's why today, when I started the session, I said that the session objectives would be defining sound leadership, where surely we define sound leadership. Where we define sound leadership as being that which inculcates a disciplined vision. The session objective was to understand how to promote sound leadership skills in social organizations, which we certainly talked about. And lastly, we analyzed sound leadership practices. So once again, thank you for being a part of this session. But as I end, I'd like to say that we serve, that's our motto. And where there's a need, there's a line. That's how we are guided. And I need to add, and I'd like to add, that where we serve and where there's a need, there's a line. Remember, the line's need is that sound leadership to create harmony in our organization. Thank you very much for listening to the session. Hopefully, your Lions Isame Virtual Forum 2020 is going to be a very good learning experience to carry forward your leadership practices in your clubs, in your districts, in your multiples, and at the international level. Thank you once again. This is Line Dr. Sandesh Shreshtha, a Line Certified Instructor, LCIP graduate, Chief of E-Training, District 225A1 Nepal, and on behalf of my home club, Lions Club Viratna Central, Dhanyavad, Namaste.